Good morning, Torbay. All together now for Uncle Tom, for Captain Tom Moore. £30 million raised from the walk around the garden. Any Liverpool supporters? Right, sorry to cut him off in his prime there, but what a fantastic effort. Big round of applause for Captain Tom, making it 30 million. And welcome to the Torbay crowd. Torbay Business Forum, here we go again for our third breakfast bites. Third in our series, Emily. Can you remember that first one?
Yes, I can, Steve. Yeah, we're getting pros now.
Emily Tucker from South Devon College making all of this possible. Fantastic. And I've got to say, it was only a couple of weeks ago we were sending Boris our wishes. Now we can send him our congratulations for a new baby boy, him and Carrie. So there's things are changing, and I feel that yeah, we're going to come through this together. So fantastic. Got a great panel lined up for you today, everybody in the forum. Steve Darling will be giving us an update in a moment on the activities at Torbay Council. We've got Alison Hernandez, Devon and Cornwall Police Crime Commissioner. Well, how we managed to get her away from her busy schedule, I do not know, but she's there waiting for us. We've got Katie Cavanna waiting in the wings. If she can get her camera to work, we'll see her, but I promise you folks, we'll definitely hear her. And then we have one of our Torbay heroes, Karen Wilson, who's raising funds for Torbay Hospital and discussing her own personal experiences of COVID-19. So moving forward, I'm going to have something a little bit special this week, just to mix it up a bit. You all know Jim Parker, Torbay's favourite uncle. Well, we got him in his kitchen today. So Jim, how are you going in the kitchen? That's a cue for Jim. Jim, hey, there he is. And can we have Jim? We can't hear you, Jim.
Well, there you go.
Right, Jim, carry on.
There you go. Here's my mixing bowl, Steve, just for you.
Take three.
There you go.
Sorry, it was.
I'm looking forward to whatever it is you're cooking today, because I have got my knife and fork ready, and I'm hoping. What is the recipe today, Jim?
Well, I'm looking at either flapjacks or a secret recipe from my wife, if she's still talking to me, because on my last show on Sunday she called me an idiot. We haven't talked since, so it depends on if she's going to help with my secret Devon pudding recipe, Steve.
No, we've got frozen. We've got something frozen. Is that what it is?
It's all right, Steve. You're okay.
No. Are we frozen?
No, you're fine.
Slow network connection, my end. I don't know about anybody else. Okay, that's good. Okay, Jim. So, what have you been up to this week? What's Torbay Weekly seeing?
So we're still trying to recognise the people that are doing terrific things in Torbay in the current crisis, Steve. So we launched a few weeks ago our Heroes campaign. It's like Katie Cavanna, the marvellous job she's doing with Reform and other people. We just want to make sure they're recognised, all the community, volunteers, the public sector, the police, everybody have been doing superb things as Torbay's literally come together over the last 6-7 weeks. So our plan is to feature them in the paper on a regular weekly basis and online. And we want to, once this crisis is over, God willing, hold a very special celebration event in the autumn to say well done and thanks to everybody.
Brilliant, thanks, Jim. We look like we've lost Steve temporarily, so so in his absence, I'm going to go on to Steve, who's going to be giving us an update. So, Steve, darling, if I just bring you in, if you're able to give us an update, please.
It's actually not bad not having to leave the house in the awful weather this morning. It actually makes me think of when I often this time of year I go camping in the Isles of Scilly. So this is the normal weather for camping for the Isles of Scilly. A bit of rain and so forth. But back to the local authority. I first of all wanted to start off by thanking Jim for helping us get out postcards that we're putting out across Torbay at the moment to children. We're quite concerned that we've had lower numbers of children who've been brought to the attention of children's services. Clearly, domestic violence is a significant issue that we're alive to in Torbay, and so we've got a postcard campaign that is reaching out to children, flagging up where they can go to Childline or other opportunities to seek some help and advice, and Jim and his newspaper is helping us get that out at the moment. But back to the local authority, perhaps for local businesses, the most important thing that we've been doing in recent weeks is getting the business grants out. We're now up to 83% of all those who've applied out to people. We've got over £23 million of cash, but most in either £10,000 or £25,000 blocks out to local businesses across Torbay. Those that are left are mostly ones where there's a query, where the name doesn't quite match up, and there are strict government guidance as to what we've got to do to make sure that we get those out. We're also now, there's about 800 local businesses, so if you haven't applied or you know of a client who may not have applied, do go to the council's website. It's quite clear there of how to apply and get your foot in the door, because there are literally millions of pounds there sat there waiting to be claimed, you know, in blocks of 10 or 25,000, and we're making phone calls, and I know I'm set to be making some phone calls, and my colleague Swithin Long is set to be making phone calls later on today to some of these businesses and reach out and encourage them to apply. Another area of the local authorities' work that is new for us is actually helping that 1.5 million people across the country who are in the shielding, who have significant underlying health issues, and we're looking at, in the region, we've got approximately 3,500 people who are in that cohort. In theory, what should be happening is there should be a national government delivery scheme for them, as far as getting food parcels to them. So that's that should be happening. Where occasionally that doesn't happen, because clearly this is a scheme that's been thrown together in a matter of weeks. We need to step in with food parcels, but we're also making sure that we're engaging with them about health, fitness and well-being, and keeping regularly in touch. If we're concerned about them, we'll be in touch every 3 days. If they seem to be coping well, then we'll be in touch every 7 days. But we've drawn together a team to do that, and it's been well received. The last bit, which is a bit of a national picture that clearly affects us in Torbay, where we've got over 110 care homes in Torbay, and a couple of weekends ago there was a significant outbreak of COVID-19 in one of our care homes, and the integrated care organisation had to significantly intervene to give them a backbone and support, and that is now, that particular care home, whilst there have been sadly some deaths there, that is now much more on an even keel. And whilst we were doing daily phone calls to all of our care homes to check that all is well, and they've got enough PPE, because we've got a mutual aid system going on to make sure that it's spread across the system. People may not have the reserves that they would wish, but we've got to deal with what's in front of us, so we're making sure that that is happening. And we feel that the integrated care organisation in Torbay, between social services, adult social services and the health service, is paying massive dividends to us, because it does seem that we're a lot more joined up and able to intervene really positively in Torbay. And then now I've got two final asks for people. First of all, we've recently launched a e-newsletter that goes out on a weekly basis. It isn't just the council speaking at you. We're keen for it also to be a community notice board of information. So please go onto our website and register for that, because we're keen that while we're in this crisis, it'll be giving people updates like our testing centre that we got opened up at the drop of a hat at Lymington Road Coach Station last Sunday. Whilst it's important that we're able to update with stuff like that, there's longer term engagement that we want to do so that we can make sure that we're listening to our community as much as possible. And then finally, do go on to the local Torbay crowdfunding website. There's the Food Alliance, where they have fairly swiftly raised their target of £10,000. They've now an extra £15,000 on top of that to help with desperately needed food bank supplies. So do just Google or your engine of search, and please do support them. I was particularly delighted where a local business called Lumiton at the back of Paynton, that they have donated £5,000 to that appeal. So please do give whatever you can. It's you'll see them listed there, and it's somewhat American in its approach, that you put down your name next door to it if you wish to, of what you've done, and you'll see some names there that you may well recognize. So I hope to see other people donating to that site later on today if you've got any spare. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for picking up there, as I lost signal. So never work with children, animals and the internet, it seems. So I've got a question for you, Steve, if you don't mind. It's come from David Rowe, and it's asking about, for the retail sector, when we are back open, please soon, what is Torbay Council putting in place or hoping to do to help get footfall back into our town centres?
We are developing a recovery plan with partners. It's something that we worked with Jim last week and other key partners, with yourself at forum meetings, and it's really important that we do get that positive way forward. I think as far as Torquay is concerned, a really quick win would be ensuring that the government invest that the £25 million town deal money is one way of ensuring that we're hitting the ground running. But also I think we've got to see it in the context that Torbay Council have our own financial challenges. We suspect that we're looking in the region of £21 million shortfall in our funding. At the moment, we've got just shy of £10 million coming in from central government at the moment to fill. So that we've still got a massive gap ourselves, but we are thinking about the future so we can hit the ground running without any doubt.
Thank you. And last night, Teenbridge were on the news saying they're going to run out of money in 6 weeks. How do we stand?
Because we've got those responsibilities for social care, both adult and children and highways, etc. Because we're a unitary authority, we're actually not as threatened as them, because they're a small, because they're district councils across. It's the district councils that are really threatened at the moment, because they're having to do an awful lot more. Effectively, what they're having to do is spend what they'd normally spend in a whole year within 3 months is the way that the game plan is working out for them. So that's why those are particularly threatened, whilst our long-term future is challenging. It's not as bleak as many district councils across the country.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much, Steve. I'm sure we'll come back to you as the hour progresses. Thank you for your update there, and there's some fantastic work to get that much money out through the doors at 22 million pounds in the space of 4 weeks, and we really were starting from zero, so fantastic for that. Emily, can we have the next slide, please? She's now, that's thrown you, isn't it? Because it probably used it up while I was in lockdown. But I got a couple of words of the day. So on the next one, after the forum slide, this is, a few people will have seen this before, the change curve. Sometimes they call it the U-bend of change. This one I prefer to see. It illustrates where maybe we are going in this particular, I've seen it today, a corona coaster, the ups and downs of your mood during the pandemic. And everyone starts off by denying that it's actually anything, there's a problem, it won't affect me. And then we really want to get a bit angry about it. We've got resistance to it. But where I want to take us is through to the exploration phase and then the commitment to action. And something we've just started to help our economy come through this and out the other side is we have as of yesterday, started a Keep It Local Torbay campaign. And a few of us business people have got together, and we're going to create the website, the Facebook page, and thanks to Andrew Strang of the Hessian Company and Sally Allen from, we all know Sally from Sally's Fashions, going to get Neil Robinson involved and James Twigger. And it's all about us buying from local producers, local vendors, and also selling outside of the Bay, promoting ourselves. TDA is very involved and part of the recovery strategy. So keep watching this space. We're going to be really pushing that. And anybody that's interested, please do message in and we'll get you included. Because if you're making something locally, local people need to buy from you. And let's see how we can do that. Now, the council's been dishing out grants. And the banks, as you know, I worked for Barclays for the last 40 years. I've been a lending manager for the last 25 years. And never before have we seen a situation where you've got a queue down the high street for loans. There are now 2 lending schemes in place. One will be launched on Monday. I'll come to that in a moment. But until now, the CBIL, which is the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, was running for 25,000 to 5 million. That has now changed. It will now be 50,000 to 5 million. It'll be 80% backed by government guarantee. It'll be interest-free and fee-free for the first 12 months. And then after that, you've got the remaining term up to 6 years in total to pay it back. But it is a loan. It'll sit on your balance sheet. You have to be able to afford it. But what we're no longer looking for is forward forecasts, cash flows, business plans. We don't need that. We look at your history and we do the viability test. So that's new this week. The viability test is key. We'll be asking you for the amount, the purpose, is the business viable, and historically, could you have afforded it? Now, the exciting announcement that sent all the banks off into a bit of a flurry on Monday morning or afternoon, sorry, was the announcement by the Chancellor of the new bounce back loan scheme. Now, this is from 2,000 to 50,000. This is for the smaller businesses, for micro entities. Launches on the 4th of May. It will be 100% backed by government guarantee. It will be interest and fee free for the first 12 months. And we haven't been told what it is yet, but there'll be a low standardized rate of interest, which will be consistent across all lenders. Term again is 1 to 6 years. Now, the secret in this, because as soon as you put a human being involved in an assessment process, things slow down. So this has to be digital. It has to be online, because otherwise we cannot fulfill it across all the banks. It cannot be possible to take your application, which will be a simple attestation with a few questions, and get that money to you within a few days. Now, when the Chancellor stood up, he said within 24 hours. And I think there are a few faces and chins dropping at that point, but it will be able to access it online and in your bank account within a few days. I don't know what else government or the banks could do apart from leaving piles of cash on the pavement outside the branches at 2-meter intervals saying, here's your cash, come and grab it, sign a chit. A chit, I said. So, but that's it. I'm happy to take questions online. If anybody wants to ask questions to any of our speakers today, please do post it on the question facility on GoToWebinar. So, Emily, can we go to our next guest? I'm hoping it will move on. I'm hoping I'm just not. Alison, there we are. Alison Hernandez. Good morning. How are you, Alison?
I'm well, thank you. I'm doing this from home before I have to go to the office, so. Yeah,
well, that's great. Well, because we are all in, we're all in lockdown. Hopefully, you're not one of the quarantinees.
No, luckily. But my daughter feels like she is because she's barely moved since she's been off school. She's 12.
Yeah. Well, last time I saw you, Alison, was when you were in all your finery dancing at the Riviera Centre. As one of the dancing stars.
Yeah, do you know what? Funny enough, actually, Steve, probably the first time you've ever complimented me. So thank you for that as one of the judges. And it's one of my proudest moments, to be fair. It was totally out of my comfort zone. and I can't believe I managed to do it. It's frightening. I've never been more scared in my life.
It
And
was.
I've been investigated by the police, so you know what I mean. It was frightening.
Yeah, so they always say it takes one to catch one. Is that true in your case?
Oh, very funny. I was innocent, by the way, just so you know, Steve. It was all cleared.
Brilliant. Case comes up Tuesday, I know. So now let's get to serious matters. The coronavirus, COVID-19. How has it affected you in your daily role?
Well, I suppose one of the things is that I haven't probably worked as hard as I have since we've gone into this crisis, because as you probably are aware, the police, the first thing that all of the agencies have done, Steve Darling will know this particularly, is you go into this major crisis mode where your communication is the main thing that you need to do, and you're all trying to make decisions really fast. All normal rules don't apply, so that's quite exciting. Because you can make decisions like that, and as long as you've got a clear rationale, you don't actually have to follow all the normal rules. So I've commissioned new services within like a 24-hour period. In fact, I personally commissioned some, and I personally don't normally do that. So we've got this 24/7 online web support for victims. So if anybody needs help, they can access it 24/7. But you know, the biggest thing that's been quite interesting is actually I've been having to do lots of, I can't see the community, so I'm having to ring residents up and keep in touch with what's going on. I'm ringing council leaders, I'm ringing lots of people, because the legitimacy of policing at the moment has been quite a challenge. And we've got one extreme of people saying, why can't you arrest second homeowners and take them back home to where they belong? To actually, why can't we have freedom of movement? I don't understand why we can't all drive to a beauty spot and do whatever we see fit and stay as long as we like. So we've got these real extremes going on, and I'm trying to get that balance. I don't think it's ever been more of a fine line of getting the balance right in policing. So I've been trying to, you know, negotiate with the chief constable and challenge him to make sure his rationale is really clear when he's making his decisions.
Because I was going to ask you, I mean, how do you interpret these guidelines and actually applying them? The emotions and the psychology behind it must be immense.
Well, do you know, I was looking at your change curve, right? I think we've gone backwards. The way it's worked with the virus is everyone's given commitment straight away to stay at home and protect the NHS. And the majority of our community, by the fact that we've just said something, are complying, which is quite incredible. We'll never need a police state in our society because we're very, very compliant. So we committed straight away, and we didn't go out, we didn't do a lot. There's starting to be some exploration though of what do those guidelines mean? Why I will drive? Can I drive 5 minutes to a beach? Or you know, if I do half an hour, is that wrong? So everybody's starting to push the boundaries now. Can I go and work if I'm a plumber and go in people's houses and do my normal job? Can I do big housing renovation? Everybody's exploring at the moment. And I think we're just going to start going into resistance soon, because people are starting to get frustrated because the guidelines are a bit woolly and people are getting a bit bored and frustrated at home. And I think particularly knowing with a 12-year-old daughter who is just literally online all day, and I'm working as well, so I'm not able to do lots of home teaching with her. I'm having to help her be responsible. It's a real challenge for parents at the moment, real challenge. And I just hope we don't go into denial and then just start ignoring any guidance that comes out. So it's been quite an interesting journey that we committed straight away on this.
Yeah. And with all of that, when you do actually have to intervene, excuse me, how is justice being secured with most of the courts closed down at the moment?
Well, I mean, it's one of my biggest worries is it wasn't a priority for government, clearly, because their priority was the hospitals, the NHS, personal protective equipment and all those things. My first thought was, oh my gosh, we don't need a lawless society because everyone thinks they can get away with things because justice has stopped. So what you can't have is police arresting people if there's no further process, you see. And all the courts needed to close because they didn't have PPE, because they couldn't do the social distancing they needed. So we just launched last week with the government, first ones outside of London to have the technology to do it, our virtual remand court. So if you get arrested, you are now absolutely getting everything done virtually in a cloud. It's a court in a cloud, We've got the defence lawyer comes in, you've got Crown prosecutor comes in, and it's really, really good. And they've got access to magistrates on there, and they're making the decisions about whether to put someone in prison or release them on bail. And it's going quite well at the moment. And just to give you a flavour of some of the people coming through that already in the first couple of weeks, assaults on emergency workers. So there's a couple of them this week. We've had a couple of people who have breached their domestic violence prevention orders. So we need to keep people safe, and we need to do something with those individuals. We can't let them get away with it. So, you know, all I'm saying is crime is still happening. It's just a lot less than it normally is. And we need to make sure justice is secured. So I think trialling new ways to make sure the courts still work is what we're up to at the moment.
And you've probably alluded to my next question, is about how has COVID affected crime? I mean, Priti Patel was quoted as saying that shoplifting was down 25%. Well, on the basis that most of them are shut, I was quite interested in that one. What's your feeling?
Yeah, do you know what's our challenge, which we've just been talking about performance of the crime yesterday with the Chief Constable and his team, is literally shoplifting is going down like that, clearly because the shops are shut. So I've said, how do we maintain that suppression of the shoplifting, and what are they now doing if they're not shoplifting? So car crime is starting to go up. So we've got to really watch at the moment what's going on. I will also say fraud against business is increasing as well. So we got the data from Action Fraud yesterday, and I had a look at that. And basically fraud against organisations is increasing. So we really need businesses to be really keeping their eye out about, you know, emails that they get requesting things. Quite a challenge. But I think that the biggest thing is with the crime sort of starting to decrease, and domestic abuse has sort of, it's gone up and down. It's stayed pretty constant. And the biggest other one is around violence with assault, with injury, and that's because our nighttime economy is shut. So I think if this goes on much longer and we start to see a trend, there'll be some real challenges about some of the businesses in the nighttime economy, how that works. Alcohol use needs to probably be quite a big conversation, to be fair.
Well, I mean, I just sent a message from my wife, actually. She talks about the furlough Merlot, and wine consumed in an attempt to relieve the frustration of not working, also known as Bordeaux or Cabernet TDM. Well, okay, I'm making light of it, but
I have to say, Steve, though, first time in my life I've ordered deliveries from Bayes Brewery, and this is an issue of lockdown, I think. So it's a bit of a sad state when you are indoors. You know, what are people going to do? So when they get released, when we open up pubs and restaurants and clubs again, you know, what is that going to look like? That's one of police's biggest fear, is how are we going to police that if it happens in a big bang, if it happens all at once. So I think there'll be some challenges around opening hours and how things work post this.
So what do you think you can do to help our businesses through your remit?
So there's a couple of things, really. Firstly, I've joined the South West Business Council task force with many other organisations. So if any businesses that are coming through there, they can access my office if they've been a victim of crime, are worried about crime on their business, because I've just shared on Twitter for anyone who has a business premise that they've had to close, just some top tips for keeping it secure. You know, straight as soon as the major incident of coronavirus kicked in, the commercial burglaries went up a bit. So, you know, what we need to make sure is that the businesses, the last thing that will break the camel's back is a business losing their income and then actually being a victim of crime on top of that. So I can support businesses, and I would say in the past, they sort of turn their nose up a bit if you offer them help from our victim care. I don't need help. What are you going to do for me in that? But reality is, I'm worried about suicide. I'm worried about mental health of businesses. So I can help in terms of the whole victim care side and reaching out. We're joined in with the local enterprise partnerships, so all their helplines have access to our victim care as well. So it's one of the things I'm probably most concerned about, is the state of the mental health of businesses at the moment.
Yes, yeah, it is a major issue as people get used to being absolutely pinned down and unable to get out and do what they want to do, which is to trade and be successful. coming to the personal side, how are your officers coping from the human side of my son was a special constable years ago in Torbay, and it was really formative in his growth. And it was great, the camaraderie that he had, but the tensions were always there. How are they now?
Well, I would say one of the things that the feedback that we've had is that because they've done so much proactive patrolling in order to be able to police the coronavirus guidelines, they've been very proactive and being out and about, and they've loved it. You know, this is what they go into policing for, is that proactive engagement with the public. So they've had tens of thousands of conversations with the public, offering them help and advice to understand the guidance. And we've been one of the top 5 enforcement forces nationally around the fixed penalty notices. It's 414 as of yesterday. You know, when you're talking to 10,000s and thousands of people, that's still not actually a lot. And most of them, by the way, were local people, not tourists, just to say. So I think they've enjoyed the challenge of being out, and remember their workload's starting to reduce as well. So this is an opportunity for them to get on top of existing crimes that they were investigating. And you know, at the moment, camaraderie is good. There was an issue about personal protective equipment, just like in the NHS. That's now been resolved. So at the moment, you'll still see police officers haven't got masks. Their main aim is to social distance. And I think we'll get to a point at the moment where I think we're doing a really good job, and they know they're doing a good job, but we have had those awful assaults of people saying they've got COVID and they're spitting at the officers, coughing at the officers. And what's really good is we secured some good sentences on those people, 12 months for one of them.
Yeah, there's always a few that will spoil it for the rest. It always has been so. It's human nature. I really do want to pass a heartfelt thank you to you, to your officers, because it's been great watching the Thursday evening clap, seeing all the police cars, all their blues and twos going, and the clapping. So it really is wonderful, and thank you for helping keep our communities together. Alison, I'll come back to you maybe in a moment under Q&As, but we're going to give you a bit of a rest for the moment. Don't run away unless you've got another meeting to go to, but we'd love to see you in a moment. But now, ladies and gentlemen, moving from one dynamic lady to another. Before I introduce Katie, I want to, Emily, if we could run just a short video, please. This is where we really do test the internet, folks. Just a thought, folks, don't forget, one stage this week, was it a loo roll was worth more than a barrel of crude oil? Just a thought.
Torbay to families in need. Hello, my name is Katie Cavanna. I'm the Managing Director and founder of Reform. Reform is a community interest company based in Torbay where we work to alleviate poverty and raise aspirations. Today we're working with our team of volunteers to distribute 400 meals and Easter eggs across Torbay to families in need.
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, ooh, yeah, yeah. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2.
Lady, fantastic, we've got you. Looking gorgeous, fantastic. So thank you to Jonathan Cavanna and the Cavanna Homes team for becoming our gold sponsors. And Katie, it's great to see you. We just seen your video, so that was a lovely little intro to what you do. Tell us a bit about your background and how you got into this.
So I've lived the majority of my life in the Bay of Dreams, Torbay, and during that time I am a qualified primary school teacher. So I went to the University of Exeter and did primary teaching as my degree. But then as the degree went on, I wanted to kind of branch out a little bit. So I ended up on a work programme working with people who were long-term unemployed. Then I moved over to Turkey and taught students in a university in Turkey. Then I came back and I worked for Devon County Council. And the role I did there was I worked with Gypsy, Roma and traveller families, which was incredible. And I also worked with unaccompanied asylum seekers and refugee children and families, which again was just an incredible job and one I'm so grateful I was allowed to do. And after that, most recently, I worked for a local multi-academy trust and led a team of family support workers where we would work with families whose children attended the school and worked with them on things like benefits, their life skills and any barriers they were facing as a family in the local area.
Wow, fantastic. And then, so the actual idea that came for Feeding Torbay, is that where it stops?
No, well, it all started, Steve, with a dream about making support inclusive for all families in Torbay, because we know geographically Torbay is spread really far. So if we said to a family, you need to come to a meeting in Torquay and they lived in Brixham, sometimes one of the biggest barriers can be transport. Having transport, getting the bus, having money to afford to get the bus, for example. So what I decided, just because it's a typical case, is to create a mobile community centre. So a centre on wheels. So very excitingly, we have UB40's old tour bus, which we're renovating into a mobile community centre. But then when COVID-19 started, we started to understand the sheer the seriousness of the situation and also the effects that would have on our local families. We parked, like we did there, parked the bus and then started our Food for Torbay initiative, which has been running for the last 6 weeks.
Fantastic. And how many meals are you pushing out a day then? So
we deliver food on a Tuesday and Friday, and currently we are delivering 800 plus meals and 800 plus food parcels to families in need across Torbay.
Fantastic. And how much does it cost to feed that many families?
Well, luckily I'm not cooking, Steve, because I can't cook. I find it very ironic that I'm heading a food project when I can't boil an egg, but hey ho. So what we're doing is we're working with local restaurants. So we've got Shoreline, Below Decks, Me and Mrs. Jones, Cactus Kitchen, Curious Kitchen, all these incredible local businesses, all these fabulous chefs and restaurant teams. They're cooking meals, which we're basing around 50p per meal, and then we're delivering them to local schools, Torbay Children's Services and Action for Children.
So what type of meal are you producing for that?
Oh my goodness me. These meals are, I've already tweeted Saturday Kitchen to try and get us on Saturday Kitchen. These meals are really, they're high quality, they're aspirational, they're nutritional, they are what we all should be eating. So they're vegetable based. We had butternut squash curry one day, we had vegetable bakes, we had just the most amazing high quality meals that families maybe haven't really had in the past and are contacting Reform and saying, wow, we love them, they're delicious, our children are really enjoying these meals, we never thought they'd like vegetables, how do you make them?
Fantastic. So you won't be taking Jim's sausage rolls with you then?
No, bless Jim and his sausage rolls, but they're not coming on my menu, thank you very much.
So tell me, how do you decide how the food and who the food goes to?
So at the moment, like I said, it's just over 800 meals and food parcels that we send out every week. Now, what's brilliant with Reform is we are a faceless entity. So we're a community interest company. But what one of our greatest things at the moment is we don't know the families. So I couldn't tell you the families. I couldn't tell you their names. I couldn't tell you their barriers. That is left to the schools, children's services, Action for Children to know for themselves. So they just highlight, okay, Katie, we need 400 meals here, right, leave it with us, we'll do it. Which is brilliant, because ultimately, having worked in schools, having worked for a local authority before, they know the families, they know the barriers, and they know what's needed. We are merely, at the moment, a distribution centre, but then as well as the meals, we're giving away books. So it's that whole package, that holistic approach where, yes, families are being fed, but what else can we do to help them in this time?
I think you mentioned to me about you'd even taken out tomato plants and ingredients as well.
It's incredible. So we had a local supporter who'd potted up hundreds of tomato plants and cucumber plants. And what we're looking at ultimately is we're not a food bank. Our long-term aim is the mobile community centre, which has a kitchen, a library, a sensory area, which goes out into the community, supporting families and ensuring that support is accessible and inclusive for all. So with our meals, what we're hoping to do as time goes on, because we're not going anywhere, we're not going to leave families, but what we want to do is start introducing a more sustainable approach, i.e. we use local companies like Roots Greengrocers. So we don't go to supermarkets, we use local suppliers because we're keeping it in the bay. We will use them for ingredients, and then families will start to learn how to make those meals, how to cook a meal. I'm going to do it myself because, like I said, I can't boil an egg, but it's about using things, about making it sustainable so it's long term, not a quick win. It's that long term approach to relieving poverty, to alleviating poverty and raising aspirations.
So that's a bit along the old adage of giving someone a fishing rod rather than a fish.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's wonderful what you're doing. Now, being a banker, I think, well, how do you create something like this? What type of entity is Reform?
So Reform is a community interest company. So there's me, managing director, and then we have 4 other directors who help steer the projects that we're on and help look at the future. Because like I said, we are not just someone who's popped up and then is going to go away again. We have been working since October to ensure that we are there for families and we can provide sustainable, inclusive support. So like Alison was saying about mental health. So making sure that the community centre is this hub that other providers can use to ensure that every single family is getting the support they need. Might be budgeting, might be cooking on a budget, might be parenting classes, it might be adult literacy classes, because we're giving families books, but can the parents actually read confidently? Well, if they can't, we're just doing them a disservice. So it's going back to basics and ensuring that everyone has the right start in life.
No, that's fantastic. And again, you're stressing the keep it local Torbay bit, which is fantastic. Yeah. It is good that we're doing this. And I do have some other contacts that we can perhaps bring together on this. This fantastic effort. So thank you for what you're doing, Katie. Are you okay for volunteers?
Well, we've got a lot of volunteers. I think at the moment we've got up to 50 volunteers now, and they are people from across Torbay, different backgrounds, different beliefs, who are all united in making a difference. A big shout out to Lawrence at South Devon College as well, because they put some free courses on, which lots of our volunteers off their own backs are doing to help them within their roles with Reform. So again, that's a sustainable approach. What we do need though is I'm awful at admin. So any PAs, can they please help? Any bid writers, can you please help? And when we do the bus renovation, I'll be Nick Knowles, but I need like a DIY SOS. I need carpenters, builders, everybody to help convert UB40's bus into a mobile community centre.
Well, I feel a project coming on, don't you?
Oh, we need UB40. Get them singing.
Yes. Well, maybe they could do a guest appearance. We'll try to see if I can put the music on, but I was struggling trying to put videos on just now. But Katie, it's wonderful what you're doing, and actually, all this talk of food is making me hungry. Can we go back to Jim? How's the cooking going, Jim?
Hello.
Hello, Jim. Can we see you?
Hello.
Jim, are you in your kitchen?
I'm still here with my bowl, my little mixing, whatever they call it. So I'm still yet to decide. I'm taking any offers. Anybody wants to send me a recipe, a challenge? Ronnie Holden on Facebook was making some nice pasties, which look really nice. My wife so far refused to help me with that. I don't know why. And there's nothing wrong with my sausage and roast, Katie, either. They're very nice. Thank you.
So, Jim, you've got to show us all your apron as well. Can you show us your apron?
There you go.
Chocolate is the answer. Fantastic. Brilliant.
I think I do the form, I tell you.
Jim, I'm going to hand over to you now because you've got one of your Torbay heroes with you today, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Karen Wilson that I spoke to this week for a piece of the paper. Karen is a lovely lady and a very brave lady, and for talking to us and telling her story. And it's a sad story, but with a really positive, strong message in the current crisis. So Karen, thanks for talking to me, and welcome. That's our page one there this week after we spoke to you about your sad story. First off, when did you move to Brixham and why?
We moved to Brixham in August, on August the 23rd. It was our dream to live by the sea. My husband lived in Cornwall when he was younger, and so he retired. We both retired, and we chose Brixham because we like the community feel. It was a working place, and people were so friendly, and obviously it's just the scenery and everything's beautiful. So that's why we moved here.
Okay, lovely. Now, I gather life changed for you when you went back to your former home in Banbury, March the 11th, was it?
Went back on March the 11th because I'm still studying in Banbury. Well, I was still studying in Banbury, so lockdown. And we stayed a bit longer because we were going for my son-in-law's 50th birthday party just outside of Banbury. So we got a taxi there with my mum, my two sisters, me and my husband, obviously, and my brother-in-law, and we had a lovely time. But the next day, my mum shouted me. She was staying in bed because she was very poorly. She'd got a high temperature, so she wanted us to leave. So we left, feeling really bad, and came back home. And then we all came down within that week. We all came down with the COVID virus. Well, we had all the symptoms. Obviously, at that point, we weren't tested. Trying to find information on the internet. I work in Exeter on a Monday, so I decided not to go. I thought it was wise not to go. And on Monday afternoon, I started to feel really ill. And on Tuesday, my husband started to feel ill. Yeah, so where we spent 3 or 4 days laid on the sofa, we were pretty, I don't know, we were a bit, the denial stage I think came in because we were like, well, you know, this is going to be all right. We haven't got any underlying health problems, and we were a bit kind of arrogant in our sense of good, we've got it over with, you know, we probably get immune, you know, so at least it's over with. My husband was always really, really resilient to stuff as well. He'd get over stuff really quickly. He was fairly fit for his age. And but unfortunately, I started to get better. So by the following Monday, I was feeling a lot better. Weak, tired, but a lot better. Whereas my husband, he initially got better. After about 3 days, he was really well for 2 days. And, you know, and then he went back downhill again. And by the following Friday, on the 27th of March, he woke up with breathing problems. He couldn't breathe, and we had to phone the ambulance to take him to hospital.
I gather that you described it to me as a roller coaster with tug. 1 minute it was okay, next minute downhill, then up again, and then really poorly. and as you say, it ended up in Torbay on the forest ward, I think, to start with.
He started on the forest ward, which and he did quite well. He had the oxygen therapy, just the oxygen, and he did really well on that for about most of the week. It was up and down. I mean, sometimes he could hardly talk, and other times he could do quite well. And on the following Saturday, the following Saturday, he'd been in there a week.
Hello.
He was up there having a shower. He was.
Hello.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Jim, have you gone off?
I think I've lost you, Karen.
Oh, right.
I can hear you, Karen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Steve.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We might have lost them. Sorry,
Lost
but
him.
carry on.
Sorry.
Carry on.
Carry on. Yeah.
Yeah. So he got up on the Saturday. He was having a shower. He was bored, and I thought that's a good sign. And he wanted to come home. And we said, oh, probably home in the middle of the week. In fact, the doctor had said that, you know, it wouldn't be long before he went home. By the Saturday evening, he'd gone down again. By the Sunday, he was moved and put onto a CPAP machine. And I saw him on the Monday morning. We were told to prepare, actually. I was told to phone his sons and my family and to prepare them. But on the Monday, they said, oh, he's doing very well. And I managed to talk to him on WhatsApp. He was tech phobic like me, really. And so it took a while for us to get connected. And it did look it's a very hard thing to be on the CPAP machine. It was described as going up the motorway with the window open and your head hanging out the window. But he was doing really well. And again, he was doing really well. He texted me about 6:30 on the Monday evening to say that he was feeling and it was strange. He got an appetite for the first time ever. First time he'd been in there, got an appetite, and you know, we had a little kind of. I texted him back, and then within half an hour of that, they'd phoned to say they were taking him down to intensive care. He'd gone downhill again, so he went to ICU. They put him onto a ventilator. I spoke to him before he went down, which was very difficult, but I told him to be brave and he'd be home soon. And again, for the first 3 days, he did well on the ventilator, but then he just went downhill again and eventually died on the 13th of April. So
that's really, really sad. And I think you described to me that your attitude at the time, you referred to it previously, was a bit blasé. You didn't, you know, with people not realizing how serious this is and how serious it still is. And I think that's one of the messages you want to get out there to people.
The message I want to get out is, you know, please don't be blasé about it. It is a life and death situation. And we didn't realise that my husband had underlying health problems until they did a CAT scan, and he had actually got emphysema, which didn't help. But we didn't know that. He was very fit. He'd suffered a little bit of breathlessness, but he'd been told he was all right. So, you know, the government have put these guidelines in place for a reason, and we really need to carry on following them. I understand how hard it is. It is very difficult, but it is a life and death situation. And if we don't follow them, then there's a chance that we could, you know, we might not come out of it alive. And I want to see people come out of it alive. I really do.
Yeah, and you were really taken aback, I gather, with the treatment that Tug received from the moment he went into Torbay through forest and then intensive care.
Absolutely. I mean, they couldn't do enough for him. When he could talk to me, he was just overwhelmed with how much the nurses cared for him. And when he went into ICU, we had a nurse with him all the time. We had 3 consultants over that time, 3 days each, and they were just so compassionate, so caring, so supportive. And particularly the consultant at the end, the last 3 days, he told me at the very beginning of those 3 days, if he thought it was prolonging his life, just for the sake of it, he would tell me. And I kind of knew on the Sunday, I picked it up from his voice that he didn't say it, but I picked it up that on the Monday he would say that. So I phoned on Sunday evening, and a very, very lovely nurse called Helen was very, very good with me, and she talked me through stuff. and explained exactly what was going on, and they tried everything. When I spoke to the consultant the next day, he was so upset. He talked through everything with me, and the nurse, I was offered to go in, and people can go in at last stage, but for personal reasons I decided to talk to him over the phone, which they allowed me to do. And the nurse that was with him was called Matt. There was a couple of names that I remember. There's a lot of names, but there was a lot of nurses across that hospital, so I don't want to just single somebody out, because they all cared for everyone that was with my husband cared for him really well. But Matt told me that he would treat my husband like he was his dad.
Yeah.
That is very sad, but it's very lovely. And I gather you're raising money now as a thank you for that care to the NHS Charitable Funds Fund. Yeah.
Yes, we set up a Facebook page for. I'll just have a look. I always forget it's a Torbay and South Devon NHS Charitable Fund. We've so far today raised £2,195 just with my friends and family through Facebook. And we're hoping that we can raise more. I'm going to eventually run the kind of half marathon in Exeter. I think it's in September or October with my daughter to try and raise more. So I shall carry on raising money, because, you know, I can't thank them enough for the care. And I will meet them in the future to say thank you personally. They've said I can do that after lockdown, but it is so important, and I can't thank them enough for what they did for me and my family, and for Tug.
Superb. And I gather people in Brixham have really rallied round you, the community spirit that's down there.
I'm absolutely amazed by Brixham. Yeah, sorry, I'll have to drink of water, because they've been incredibly supportive. I've had so many messages through Facebook. When I walk round on my permitted walk, I see people, we chat at a distance, you know, and I often tell people what's happened, because I want them to understand that this is really important. But my neighbours, just so much care, and they're so friendly, and I really want to give back. I've given stuff to the food bank. I'm trying to volunteer with them, but there is a lot of volunteers at the moment, so I want to give back to the community as much as I can, because they've cared for me and my family so well.
Okay. Karen, you're one inspirational lady. It's been a really sad time, but the message you got out there is superb. Thanks for talking to me. Thanks for talking to us. Let's support your Facebook campaign. And thank you very much, Karen. Thank you. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you. So back in the studio from the kitchen. Thank you very much. And what a sad but heartwarming story at the same time. And thank you so much, Karen. I'm sure that the Torbay Business Forum will be able to help you, and a really good luck with your training in lockdown for the half marathon. And I'm really hoping to see that you'll be able to raise so much more money. Wow. On that note, it actually brings us to a close. We've had our hour. I have had one offer, not a question, but an offer. Andrew Strang of the Hessian company, who's working with me on the Keep It Local Torbay campaign. He says, we will offer to help on the bus renovation, any upholstery or window coverings. I may not be able to do all for free, but certainly as cheap as possible. Well, that's all we can ask, really, isn't it? And maybe we can find a way to help pay for that. So we're going to work with Katie. We're going to help Karen. I'm going to thank Alison and Steve, and of course my co-host Jim. I think we've got something going here, Jim. You know, there's got Saturday morning kitchens that have nothing on.
Let's keep it quiet, shall we?
So can we bring our guests back in full glory, please? So thank you to all. Do thank our guests, our sponsors, Jim and Emily, of course, who's been feverishly pressing buttons, because at midnight last night I suggested a couple of things that we might want to do, and Emily's been scratching her head as to how we can produce that. But I think that really it says thank you to Angela and Mike at IMS Marketing. and for the publicity. We had 88 people on today, which is fantastic. We're going to do this again in a fortnight. We'll have some new guests. Brings the event to a close, saying happy birthday, Captain Tom Moore. Stay safe, folks. I think this is where I've got to turn it off, otherwise I do this. Give us all away.
Bye.